Hello, and welcome to Skookum Chuck. Translates directly to strong water. Beautiful Oceanis 400. We're going to show you a bit around the boat, in-depth boat briefing, some great features. Before you set sail, it's a good idea to top up your water tanks. You can see that it says water across this fill point. It has a star-shaped cap that you can use the winch handle for. There are 2 water fill points on this boat, one in the bow, on the starboard side. We'll point that out when we go to the foredeck. On the other side here, starboard side, you have a diesel filler point here. That's diesel with a smaller star shape, but you do need the key that's located down in the chart table. We'll point that out when we go down below. Here we have a smart plug for our shore power cable, 30 amp connected to the dock here. Please always make sure that you disconnect from the dock first, and vice versa. Here you can squeeze each sides, make sure, and then pull at the actual handle itself, not at the cord, and this locks on, and you can hear it click in. Make sure that's secure. Here we have the transom seat. It's dropped down now for easy platform boarding. Pop it up like so. Make sure you lock it into place on each side, and secure the lifeline while you're underway. And the supporting ladder down below, and a couple of great storage lockers for empties, garbage, recycling along the way, like so. So here we have the emergency steering quadrant. This cap here, featured to pop in your winch handle. You unlock it, you'll be exposed to the steering quadrant with the emergency tiller that is on the port side locker. Also have the manual bilge pump. Pop this open, and the emergency bilge pump handle is located in the propane locker. Man overboard pole here, life ring, heaving line, important safety equipment to point out, your stern light. So here we have Yanmar engine start key. Plop it in the ignition there. Always want to make sure you give this control some throttle with no gear. You can only plop in this red button when it's completely in the neutral position, just like so. If it is even the smallest bit in reverse or the smallest bit ahead, you won't be able to pop in that red control to give it just throttle and no gear. When it's completely neutral, you can plop it in, give it some juice. Always want to make sure this kill switch is pushed down. Turn it over, with some juice, turn it all the way. Hear that fire up? I'm going to want to go to the back of the transom and always visually check that there's water coming out the back of the exhaust. Good. Here on the port side cockpit locker, we have a cable and lock. You should take ashore with you when you go for a little paddle. We have a jerry can of outboard fuel, a pump, and a baler. Please make sure you take all of those and the oars that are in the dinghy when you go ashore. A couple of buckets and the emergency tiller that we were referring to. This barbecue will be mounted on the starboard side there, and underneath here we have the main propane tank. This propane tank is solely for the oven and stove, and we have a secondary propane tank on the other side for the barbecue. This is the handle for the manual bilge pump we pointed out. I'll show you now. Like so. But there is an automatic one down below. Here on the starboard cockpit locker, we have the propane bottle. We have the regulator hose that connects to the barbecue and threads onto the propane bottle. We have the water hose to fill up. Please top up before you set sail. Refill where you can. We have a spare anchor, extra line, spare chain, and 250 feet of floating stern line. You can take this whole reel, balance it actually on the transom here. Take it onto either side, row ashore, wrap it around a tree, feed it back to you, and then in the morning you can just release without having to go back ashore. Last cockpit locker, probably the only locker you can't store any of your goods on board. Very crucial. You leave this locker completely free. Port mechanisms, the autopilot, steering, heat control, heater. Please do not store anything in here. This is on the starboard side. Transom. Awesome brand new navigational pod. Raymarine Hybrid Touch chart here. Many different options, navionics, nautical charts, waypoints, the works. Autopilot, Windex, different screens with the depth sounder, speed log, filter through these screens. You can also have your GPS coordinates, course over ground, speed over ground, and you can filter through that different screen selection. The manual itself for this GPS is within the GPS itself, just like so from the home screen. So this boat is rigged with a roller furling mainsail. Makes it super easy to handle all the lines, the sails, all from the cockpit. So as you can see here, the first reef, second reef, main halyard are all blocked off with a zap strap. All the lines are fed into the box down below to make sure those are not touched, because we're going to be bringing the lines in and out rather than up and down on a regular lazy jack mainsail. First things first is to have the main sheet wide open, like so. Then we're going to move on to the other side and open up. On this side, we're going to open up the main furl and have it completely wide open. Make sure the block all the way back flat. Then the out hole wide open. So, as it is in his name, self-explanatory, we're going to be pulling the sail out with the out hole. We're going to want to make sure all the lines are completely free, nobody is stepping on them, and they're not coiled, and they're ready to run. Then the main sheet, main furl, a little bit of tension. The main sheet is open on the other side. We'll pull the sail out with the out hole, a little bit of tension on the furl. As you'll see on the mast itself, there's a spool and a drum, and you'll see it furl away and pull out. I'm going to be holding a little attention on the main furl. Crew member here is going to be pulling out on the out hole, like so. Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful and stop, and vice versa. I'll hold a little bit of tension here. You want to pull on this one. Maybe a couple more loops around. It would be much easier if you're pointing completely dead upwind, not at the dock. We don't want to have any tension across the boom, as we are right now at the dock. You need to be pointing completely dead upwind like you would with a regular mainsail. Perfect. One more.
Right, you there.
Excellent. Thanks, crew member. As a quick refresh, I want to make sure that the main sheet completely wide open, the block all the way back, ready to run free. The other side here, out hole, completely wide open, ready to run free. Main furl, ready to run. You need to be pointing directly upwind, just like you would with a regular mainsail. Boom topping lift, wide open. Make sure that when you drop the boom topping lift that it is not chafing on this bimini, but you do need to have this loose in order to bring this in. Here we are at the bow of the boat. The engine is running at 1500 RPMs. We have this anchor locker. It's a nice V that does require that about every 6 feet or so, you are stopping to feed the chain down. We do not want a clump piling underneath this gypsy here. It's not just a crew disciplining device. It is required to knock the chain down and release the gypsy if it should get caught. Simple up and down mechanism. Same person who is feeding the chain down is the same person pushing the up and down button, please. We have a good 150 feet of chain, 125 feet of road, and is marked every 30 feet. Here we have roll bolts here, same as the transom style. Open, open, release these blocks here. Make sure all crew members are aware that the stairs will now be missing from the companionway. They do come completely off. It'll be quite a jump. Move this nicely over to the side. Out of the way. Beautiful, huge access to the engine. Lots of things to look at here. We have belts, hoses to assess. We have done full service before you arrive for your charter. So you should not need to top up any oils throughout your charter holiday, but there are things you can assess for fluids. The back there, you can see the coolant, see the strainer basket. We can check the oil down here at the dipstick. You see that? And can you see the strainer basket back there? If there is not any water coming out the back of the exhaust when you start up the engine, immediately shut the engine off. Come down below, assess the strainer basket. Very simple first likely cause is there is seaweed caught up in there. Good access from the port cabin over here as well. You'll be able to better access that. Should be hand tight on top of that strainer basket to pull it out and pull out any seaweed. Maybe a little thick. After any amount of motoring, it's very good practice to check the engine bay every day. We will have it completely dry, just like so, and you can record any amount of oil, fluids, anything of that sort, just visually here. The floorboard directly forward of the engine can be lifted up for the high water bilge alarm is active. You hear that beep, and the through hole right here. Do not touch it, but that's where it's located if you need to turn it off, which you shouldn't. So we were talking earlier how crucial it is to always check the back of the transom of the boat to make sure there is a steady flow of water coming out the back of the exhaust whenever the engine is running. If that is not the case, immediately shut off the engine. Come down below. Like we said, the most likely cause is seaweed has been sucked up into the saltwater intake or into the strainer basket. Before you can check the strainer basket and take off the lid, open up this floorboard immediately forward of the engine, shut off this, make sure you come down below, shut off the engine intake, just like so. Now you can go back over to the strainer basket, it is just hand tight, take off the lid, make sure you do not lose that O-ring seal. You will not be able to prime if that O-ring seal is not replaced into that strainer basket that we pointed out at the back of the engine. Just clear out any seaweed, that's the first probable cause. Refill it with water, make sure the O-ring's back on, and replace that lid. Feel free to call us and we can talk you through this, if this is happening. You'll either not see any water come out the back of the engine, or you'll hear the engine alarm going off. As soon as you've done that, start up the engine, you have a minute to come back down, and open this up again. Like so.
This is your 12 volt DC panel and everything's labeled accordingly. If you switch on the cabin lights, that will give you lights throughout here, but you have a little master panel here, that's your galley overhead. If you look behind you, you'll see that coming on. And then you'll have the sink light coming on, and then you have the table overhead, those two lights. So those are all the lights in the saloon, and they're all controlled from here. This is your 12 volt DC outlet plug, so if you've got something you want to charge up, you'll switch that on and you'll plug in there. And we do supply little charging units for that, which will help you. And they live in here. You have a look. They're actually either there or the chart table. And what we have here is we have a host of little charging units. That's probably the neatest, and it gives you voltage at the same time. So you plug that in and then switch on the outlet. You can see it comes up and it'll give you the voltage, and it gives you 2 USBs to charge. So that's a useful little unit. And we have the rest going on. This is the water pump. That's if you want water. You can hear it running and charging up. I would suggest you only have that on when you want to use it, because if somebody's left the tap running and you go out and shop, it could be just trickling slowly and you don't notice. You'll come back and the tanks will be empty. And also when you're trying to sleep at night, you don't want that pump motoring. But that is your water pump, so I'll switch that off. This is your bilge pump. I like to run that once a day, and when you listen, it makes a loud, raucous noise, and you can hear that that's empty because it's one tone. When it's pumping, it slows right down, so that's empty. This is your refrigerator unit. Now this unit is the engine-driven refrigerator, so when you're motoring along, you can switch this unit on, which says refrigerator unit, and the timer. Those are both got to go on, and that will bring in the powerful engine-driven fridge, which will freeze down the big plate inside the fridge unit. Okay, and then the next one's confusing. It's called Comfort, and that is your shower drain pump. I'm sure that if you looked it up in French, Comfort is not the shower drain pump, but that's always been the shower drain pump. Your electronics, switch on your electronics outside, so we'll switch those on and then have a look at those when we pass by. This is your VHF and hi-fi here, and your radar. You've got a very effective radar. And this is the electric fridge. Now I would suggest you use the electric fridge whenever you're plugged into shore power, because what you're taking out of the batteries is immediately being put back by the battery charger. So that's your electric fridge. So when I'm motoring along and I've got the alternator charging up the batteries, I usually have the refrigeration unit, that's the engine driven, and the electric on at the same time. However, when I go and anchor, I always make sure the electric fridge is switched off, because the big fridge would have frozen the plates down and will keep it cool for at least 2 or 3 days, so you won't have to continually be running the electric fridge. So that's a useful addition. Over here on the right is the electrical control panel, and this is the main breaker. Now before you take the plug out of the back of the boat, it's always good to switch that off so there's no current running. And these are your outlets, your plug outlets, and this bottom one is your battery charger, so you'll always want that to be on when you have shore power working. To work the VHF radio, you come across the extreme right hand side of the DC panel and switch on VHF. Then you come over here and there's a little power button. You hit that down, hold it for 3 seconds, and on it comes. Now that's your WX channel. If you want to go to regular channels, you just hit that, and that's 16, and then you can channel up and channel down. That's it. Now if you want the WX channel, which is your weather channel, you just press one of those and there it comes, and then you hit that, and now you have weather. Okay, now to switch off, you hold this down for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 3 seconds. That's what you do, and that's it. In the starboard aft cabin, we have the battery switches. Now if you just peer in there, you'll see that the red ones are labeled, and basically they're the house batteries, the starter batteries, and the anchor windlass. So those are all there. The black switch is the common ground, which will shut everything off on the boat. With these switches, you don't need to touch them at all. The up and down position is when they are on. If you wanted to switch them off, like the emergency parallel needn't be on when you're motoring, because the batteries are getting charged anyway. You can switch it so that they're in the horizontal position, and that will switch it off. On the extreme left is a breaker for the windlass. So if the windlass is not working, that little yellow toggle will move, and that will show you that the breaker has tripped. So again, everything is fine and it's working there, so you just leave it as it is. Just before we move off from the chart table, there is the diesel fill key with the smaller star pattern. That lives in this locker. Okay, so I'll shut that. And right below is your fire extinguisher. You've got one there, and you've got one forward. So you've got two large fire extinguishers as a safety.
Here we are in the aft head. Show you the mechanism for emptying this holding tank. There's not a macerator here. You simply switch it over from the tank position, label tank here, over to the C position, like so. And you can hear it start filtering over. When it's in the C position, simply empty her out, just like that manual bilge pump up top. So here we are in the aft head. It's a basic Jabsco design. Always want to make sure it's left in the dry bowl. Can you see that dry bowl picture? I'm going to start off with that. Empty, up and down like so. Flick this lever over the wet bowl, up and down. Good 5 to 10 excessive wet pumps on each side. Back on the dry bowl, up and down. Back on the wet bowl, again and again, till it's completely clear. Always leave it on the dry bowl. Here we are on the port side saloon settee. You open up underneath here, you'll see this is the switch over valve for each water tank. There are 2 water tanks on board. Always good to empty out of the forward tank first. Better sailing performance. See this in line with the hoses there. Switch it over when that's done and open up this one, like so. Here we are in the port side of the salon. Under the settee, we have the water switchover valves. It's very important that you do not burn out the water primer. Once you hear the tank empty, immediately turn off the tank and switch it over on the other tank. The forward tank is being emptied first here for better sailing performance, in line with hoses there, and just be switched over like so. And then you switch over to the off tank. We've turned on the galley sub panel and we're going to pull out the propane lever here. Once that's on, you'll see it go from red, flashing green, steady green, means we can turn on the stovetop or the oven. So now that we've switched on the galley sub panel, ignite the solenoid with the propane switch here at the galley. We've had to open up the galley bottle, which is an anti-clockwise turn up in the cockpit locker that we showed during that briefing. We can now ignite this stovetop. Little igniter flame here, light that, and voila!
Thank you so much for watching our short video presentation. I do hope that this helps you on your trip. We sincerely hope that you have a great trip. If there are any questions that you have pertaining to the operation, you've also got the manual that you can refer to, and you can call me, 1-250-729-5592. Have a great holiday, and thank you for sailing with the Nanaimo Yacht Charters.